So simple tutorial. Good morning students. Welcome to SST So simple tutorial. Today we are going to start a new and interesting chapter, that is the making of global world. Dear students, we are living in the era of globalization. But when we talk of globalization, we generally refer to the economic system which emerged in the last 50 years or so. The economic system where there is free flow of goods, services and capital between nations. The system that actually we are going to deal in the last chapter of our economics book. So what is globalization is not the matter of discussion here. It is the history of globalization that is the matter of discussion here. That is how the modern world became global. We will go back to the past and explore this phenomenon. In this chapter, we will pick the story from Silk Route and end with the emergence of MNCs in the world market. We will try to understand the history of trade, migration of people, movement of capital, etc. in the process. Students, globalization is not a new phenomenon. It existed in some form or the other since early times. Since then, it has gradually evolved. From ancient times, travelers, traders, pilgrims, etc. have traveled long distances for various reasons. And when they moved, they carried with them goods, money, ideas, inventions, and even germs and diseases. This is what our history says. So, with this short introduction, let us start our Unit 1 Pre-Modern World with Silk Route. Actually, Silk routes are a very good example of pre-modern trade and cultural links between distant parts of the world. Let us discuss Silk Route first. Dear students, Chinese silk was in great demand during the ancient period because of its fine quality. It became a fashion, especially among the royalty and the upper classes in many countries, to wear clothes made of this expensive material. So the route along which Chinese silk was transported to the Mediterranean region became famous as Silk Route. But silk was not the only commodity that travelled through it. Besides silk, Chinese pottery, textiles and spices from India also travelled this route. In the return journey through this route, what used to come from Europe was nothing but gold and silver. So this is about trade. But besides trade, was there any other contribution of this route? Yes, this route also contributed to the spread of religion. Buddhism spread to the West and Central Asia, China including Tibet, Korea and Japan through the Silk Route. Christian missionaries and later on Muslim preachers also travelled along this route. So how old is this route? Students, this route had open trade with the West since the 2nd century BC and remained in use until 1453 AD, when the Ottoman Empire boycotted trade with China and closed them. Have you heard about Marco Polo? Yes, the same name written behind your school bus. He was a famous merchant from Venice. He had used the Silk Road to travel from Italy to China. And while he returned to Venice in 1295, he used the Silk Road route only. So students, why is this example quoted here? The answer is simple. The sense is to basically understand the significance of Silk routes, to understand how it connected distant places in the pre-modern world. Let us now see the contribution of food to the process of globalization of the early periods. Students, when people or say traders used to move long distances, they carried with them their food and food habits. These were then transplanted in the new lands, and over time these became the established practices in those countries. Take the example of spaghetti and noodles. It is believed that noodles traveled west from China where they are known as spaghetti. Also, Arab travelers took pasta to Sicily. Sicily is an island in Italy today. Okay. Take the example of most common foods like potatoes, soya, groundnuts, tomatoes, chilies, etc. These foods were not known to our ancestors some 500 years ago. Why? Because these foods have their origin in America. So they came to Europe and Asia only after Columbus discovered America. Thus, many of our common food have their origin in America. Potato, dear students, wherever it spread or say went, Europe or Asia, it proved to be boon for the poor. Since it was cheap, it became the basic food of the poor. Europe's poor began to live longer because of potato. Unfortunately, in mid 1840s, a disease destroyed potato crop in Ireland. The poor peasants had no alternative food to substitute potato. Therefore, hundreds of thousands died of starvation because of scarcity of potato. You can see figure 4, the Irish potato famine in your book. This shows how a crop can make a difference between life and death. Till 15th century students, silk routes were the principal route of travel between Asia and Europe or Africa. Two major events happened in this period. First, the European sailors found a sea route to Asia. Second, the European sailors also discovered America. You all must be aware of the names of Columbus and Vasco da Gama, isn't it? Because of these two developments, movements of goods and people between different continents became shorter and faster. The word America, students, used in the present context includes North America, South America as well as the Caribbean. Okay. The discovery of America led to the enhancement of wealth of Europe. European countries like Spain and Portugal were very greedy of gold and silver. They expected huge quantity of gold in South America. Actually, Europeans believed that somewhere in this new land there was a place of immense wealth, the city of gold known as El Dorado. That is why many expeditions set off in search of El Dorado. And by the mid 16th century, there was a mad rush in Europe to develop colonies in America. They established their rule over there with the help of their military power. But they did not spare any other method either to establish their colonies there. For example, Spanish conquerors launched a biological warfare in America. They carried the germ of smallpox in their bodies and spread the germs in those regions that they wanted to conquer. The conquerors were immune to this disease, but because of their long isolations, the American inhabitants had no immunity against this disease. So once introduced, the germs spread the deadly disease and killed the whole community. As a result, they conquered those regions easily. So we can say that the global transfer of disease in the pre-modern world also helped in the colonization of America. Students, the image of Europe that we have today is quite different what was until 19th century. Poverty and hunger were common. Cities were overcrowded. Deadly diseases were widespread. Religious conflicts were also common and dissenters were persecuted. Therefore, thousands of people left Europe to settle in America. By the 18th century, in America, plantations were growing cotton, sugar, etc. for European markets. Just recall the triangular slave trade that we read in the French Revolution chapter. Okay. On the contrary, until the 18th century, China and India were among the richest countries of the world. They dominated the world trade. But from the 15th century onwards, China started to restrict its overseas contacts and went into isolation. So, the reduced role of China on one hand and the increasing importance of America, on the other, gradually moved the center of the world trade towards the west. Thus, Europe emerged as the center of world trade. I hope you understood the topic discussed today. So let me stop here today. Time for probable questions now. 1. What were Silk Routes? What is their importance? 2. How did food serve as a means of cultural link between distant regions? 3. Explain what we mean when we say that the world shrank in the 16th century. 4. Explain how global transfer of disease in pre-modern world helped in the colonization of America. 5. How did Europe emerge as the center of world trade in the 18th century? All of you, read your book now. In the next class, we will discuss Unit 2, the 19th century. Till then, keep reading and have a nice time. Thank you.